All right, so we're back here again, and so what we're gonna end up doing is start diving into some general kind of ways of how people tend to talk about crime and whatever. So this is by no means something that you'll cover in theory. That's a larger depth, and you could take theory with yours truly if you're so inclined. But this is again to come back to it. So when we last let off, Uncle burned down landlord's home. And so with that kind of thing, why we're left with a why. Why, oh why, did this uncle decide that he wanted to commit crime? So one perspective argues the following, right? That, with this particular case then, that it was a choice, right? So these are, broadly put under choice theories. And they come up with a few, ideas then. So, one is that the goal then is that there is a thought process of some kind, right? We assume and believe that people are thinking, right? And with this kind of thinking, right, there is this sort of processing that happens, right? Your little computer brain comes on, and it goes, it's just thumbing through information, don't, and it's making decisions, it's outlining things. So we have this processing occurs, right? And then here, there's a little, weighing that's happening, right? Where on one side, we have the pros of doing something, and on the other, we have the cons of doing something. And so mentally, there is this balancing act. That's the wrong color, but oh well. Balancing act of what to do, when, how, is it worth it? And so what is more or less happening through this, right, is that there is this sort of assumption then that people are choosing to commit crime. So these people, they are rational in that they are making decisions that are quite often, and we would argue, poor decision making. We would also argue that they are not compelled, right? So these people have free will to commit crime. So there's no compelling to do it, right? No one's holding a gun to their head to commit crime, right? And so there is this procession intellectual process that's happening, right? So if we think about my uncle then, so let's go back to that example, right? So we're going to denote uncle with the letter U. What happens in his head, right? Maybe we can do, we're gonna erase this real quick. So we have, we'll call him Uncle T for Timmy. Is that his real name? You'll never know for sure. No, it's not Timmy, I promise. So Uncle T in his head, right? So let's assume that this is going on, and this is his head, right? That's going on inside, right? So first thing he's landlord, right, is the first thing. And then he thinks jerk, right? And these two are definitely related, right? Landlord and jerk. He was evicted, and that's also related to that. Wow, that box drew itself. It was kind of nice. Was evicted as well, right? So we have this process where the eviction and the uncle is here too, and he's also got rage. Wait, how did I do that? I can't even replicate that. Oh well. Rage at being evicted, and this is also linked to the landlord, who is a jerk, right? So this uncle is like weighing in here, right? And so, you know, he's thinking about like revenge, right? So, you know, in his head then, because he's been wronged, right? Desires, we'll put this like this. Revenge. Right? And so, you know, further on this, right, you know, we think that's kind of easy, right? So we have this big thing that's going on, but there's still like this procession process that's happening, right? So, you know, what we have in here, right, how do we get to ultimate issue of burning down the house? That's a song by the Talking Heads. Burning down house, right? So this latent thing. Well, on the first thing, we know revenge is definitely making a move here, right? It's definitely coming into play. But we also, outside of that though, when we think about pros and cons, it's like, well, I do have to drive there. I live in Ohio now, you know, South Carolina's not next door. So that's, you know, influencing this decision. So we'll make the uncle here. And then we'll give him his long stringy hair, which he definitely had. Right? So all this is like weighing an influence in here. So there's the revenge, which is good. And then there's like the drive. There's the like getting caught. You know, then I have to like, maybe I'll smell like gas, right? It's also like weighing in on him. But at the same time, it would feel good, right? Revenge is a dish best served cold, as the Klingons used to say. So revenge, it feels good. And I'm in South Carolina. I could go to the beach. Right? All these things are weighing in, right? And so based off of this, this leads to the decision, right? LeBron James style, the decision. And so this is weighed out. All these influences are happening to him, and this leads to him deciding to burn down the house, right? So with this little metric, then we're seeing that we have in this place then that we have all these factors that are loading in onto this decision and ultimately influences him to commit crime. So that's kind of like the sort of thought process, right, that goes in, is that this weighs the pros and cons, all these different factors, and then someone makes a decision. Now, of course, you can expand on it and add other factors and things like that, but you know, it's quite a mess. So what we end up doing then is like, what do we do with this information, right? So if we suspect this is how people commit crime, what do we do with it? So in that, we'll pick that up in the next video.